The glass didn't shatter. It just cracked. That's how it started. With a half-empty tumbler slipping from my hand during our 10th anniversary dinner, not because I was drunk, but because I finally saw what I wasn't supposed to. Her eyes. Watching her phone more than me. Smiling at something that wasn't part of the conversation. Something about the way she tilted her screen, like she was guarding it from the candlelight or my curiosity, set off a fire alarm in my chest. But I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not when the server brought the check. Not when she leaned over the table and called me babe, like it still meant something. My name is Owen Mercer. I used to be the kind of guy who folded his socks, who remembered anniversaries without calendar reminders, who asked her if she needed anything every time I left a room. She used to laugh when I asked that. Said I acted like we lived in some 1950s sitcom. Well, I guess the sitcom ended. The reruns are bitter. You know when you know something's wrong, but you don't have a clue how to say it? That was me. I wasn't blind, just slow. Like the guy in a horror movie who hears a noise in the basement and says, "Must be the pipes." But I heard more than pipes. I heard silence. The kind of silence that hums. After that dinner, she started working late more often. Not every night. Just enough to build a pattern you couldn't quite call a coincidence. One night, I asked what project was keeping her out. She blinked, tilted her head, and said, "Didn't I tell you?" That's when I started keeping track. Not a journal, nothing melodramatic. Just notes. Timestamps. Gas receipts. A missing wine glass here. An unfamiliar cologne scent on her coat there. I didn't tell her I knew. Not yet. I'm not the yelling type. I don't do drama. I wait. I listen. And what I started to hear in the silence was louder than anything she ever said out loud. She'd already left me emotionally. She just hadn't bothered to inform me yet. But I was already packing something she didn't expect. A plan. It wasn't lipstick on a collar or hotel receipts or some stranger slipping up and calling me Mark. It was dryer lint. Yeah, dryer lint. I was folding laundry, because apparently I'm the last adult in America who still folds t-shirts into rectangles, when I noticed a single, tiny thing that didn't belong, a gold button. Polished. Not from my shirts. Definitely not from anything I owned. I held it up like some forensic detective on a late-night crime show. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to be wrong. But there it was. Solid evidence from the battlefield of subtle betrayals. So I did the thing nobody wants to admit. I searched. Her gym bag. Her coat pockets. I opened drawers I never opened. That's where I found the ticket stub, front row, jazz concert, 2 weeks ago. The same night she said she was at a friend's baby shower. She hates jazz. Always said it sounded like instruments arguing. So who was she arguing instruments with? That night, I set the dinner table like usual. Poured 2 glasses of her favorite wine. Watched the wax drip slow from the candle, the kind of slow that makes you question everything. When she walked in, she didn't notice the wax, or the food, or the empty chair across from her. She noticed the silence. It spooked her. "What's with the setup?" she asked. Tossed her keys. Smiled a little too wide. "Anniversary again already?" I smiled back. "No. Just Tuesday." She sat down. Fork and knife in hand like nothing was breaking. Chewed. Swallowed. Looked at her phone mid-bite. Then she asked, "You okay?" I nodded. Because I was. Strangely. That's when I knew she had no idea who she was dealing with. She always used to fall asleep on the couch. I used to cover her with a blanket. Kiss her forehead. Turn off the TV. But lately, she stayed awake longer than me. Stayed working after midnight. I started testing it. One night, I faked snoring just loud enough to suggest sleep. Left my bedroom door cracked. That's when I heard it, her footsteps. Soft, but not sneaky. Like someone who's not worried about being caught. The front door opened. Closed. Silence again. I waited 10 minutes. Then I followed. I didn't tail her like some amateur private eye. I didn't need to. I already had a shortcut in place, an app one used to track her phone when she lost it last year. She never turned it off. Never noticed. The little blue dot landed 3 miles from home, at a boutique hotel with glowing cursive letters and a $12 valet. I didn't go inside. I didn't need a scene. I needed certainty. So I waited across the street, sipping coffee from a gas station cup like it was courage. At 1:14 a.m., I saw them. Her and a man in a navy suit. Laughing. Touching. The kind of casual closeness that comes with comfort, not novelty. Not a fling. This wasn't new. This was practiced. She kissed him. He said something. She laughed again. I knew that laugh. It used to be mine. They walked into the hotel together like the rest of the world didn't exist. I sat in my car for another hour. Not crying, not yelling, just quiet. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't explode. It just clicks. Like a puzzle piece sliding into place. The next morning, she made pancakes. Pancakes. She hadn't cooked a real breakfast in months. Not since she got too tired, or too busy, or just not a breakfast person anymore. But there she was, hair in a loose braid, humming something light, like betrayal had a soundtrack. Got an early meeting today? I asked, sipping coffee like I wasn't planning a Cold War over eggs and syrup. Nope, she chirped. Cleared my morning. Figured I'd make you something for once. She smiled. I smiled back. 2 actors. No script. Just vibes. While she flipped pancakes like she hadn't just disappeared into a hotel with Mr. Navy suit, I watched. Not her face. Her hands. Her rhythm. Like she was rehearsing normal. I took a bite. Chewed slowly. These are great. She nodded like she expected that. Like she knew she could still steer the ship. She didn't notice I hadn't touched the syrup. That I never do when I'm thinking. She never paid attention to those tells. But I do. I collect them like clues. That afternoon, I left work early. Told the team I had a dental appointment. That's technically true, except the dentist was my old college buddy, Cal, now a PI with a camera lens longer than my marriage. You sure? Cal asked, leaning on the hood of his truck like he was half PI, half bartender. I don't need fireworks, I said. Just facts. He nodded. What do you want me to look for? Whatever she's not saying. I want timestamps. License plates. Faces. Hotels. Anything with a date and a room number. Cal just said, copy that, like this was just another Wednesday. For him, maybe it was. By Friday, he had the goods. I met him at a bar that smelled like spilled beer and regret. He slid an envelope across the table like we were passing classified intel. You sure you want to open that? He asked. I nodded. Inside, photos. Hotel lobbies. The same man. The same arm around her. Restaurant receipts. One with her signature. A selfie I hadn't seen. Her in a dress I didn't recognize. Happy. Relaxed. Taken 2 weeks ago. The same night she told me she had a migraine and needed to sleep early. It was all there. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask questions. I just tucked the envelope into my jacket like it was a fire starter I planned to use later. Because that's exactly what it was. Next came phase 2. Saturday morning. I got up early. She was still asleep, mouth slightly open, one arm flung over to my side of the bed. I stared at her for a full minute. Not because I missed her, but because I was done pretending. She had made our home a lie, and I was done decorating it with denial. I went to the office and printed everything. The photos, receipts, time logs, even a screen capture of her location history. I didn't need to confront her. Not yet. That wasn't the play. Instead, I started rearranging the house. Bit by bit, I removed all my clothes from the closet. Took down the photos where we looked happy. Left the frames, just emptied the memories. I swapped out my toothbrush, razors, and shampoo. Cleaned out my drawer in the bathroom. I didn't make it obvious, but I made it complete. I wanted her to feel it before she understood it. I even moved my favorite mug, the blue one with the chip on the rim, from the cabinet to the back of my car. Petty? Maybe. But it was mine. I left her routines untouched. Her slippers stayed by the door. Her tea on the counter. Her yoga mat rolled up by the bookshelf. I didn't want her to think I was leaving. I wanted her to think I was already gone. That night, we watched a movie. Something light. She curled up next to me, legs tucked under mine like old times. She laughed at something dumb in the movie, then turned to me. You're quiet lately. Just tired, I said. She nodded. Work. Something like that. She laid her head on my shoulder. I didn't move. She smelled like lavender and someone else's cologne. Not mine. Definitely not mine. I didn't say anything. Not then. Not when she fell asleep. Not even when she murmured his name. Yeah, his name. Slipped out in a dream. One of those soft, sleepy whispers you can't unsay. That was the final piece. The next morning, she woke up to the sound of the coffee maker. I had already packed. 1 suitcase. Just enough. Not because I was running, but because I was making space for silence, for distance, for impact. She came into the kitchen wearing my hoodie, the one she always stole on lazy Sundays. She looked confused. Going somewhere? She asked, yawning. I looked at her. Really looked. Then I smiled. Just thought I'd take a break. Her eyebrows creased. A break. Yeah, you know. Some space. Something temporary. She blinked. Is this because I've been busy? I chuckled. Busy. That's one word for it. She looked like she wanted to argue, but something in my tone stopped her. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just held up the envelope. She stared at it. Didn't take it. Didn't need to. Her face turned pale. Her lips parted slightly, a soundless, "oh," escaping as the realization hit. I walked to the door. You're really leaving? She asked, voice cracking. I opened the door. Turned back once. I'm not leaving. I'm just stepping out of a story I didn't write. And then I was gone. I didn't check into a hotel. That would have been too easy. Too linear. Instead, I drove. No map. No plan. Just wheels spinning and windows cracked open to let out the sound of everything I didn't say at the door. The envelope sat on the passenger seat like a co-pilot with nothing left to navigate. She hadn't called yet. She would, but not right away. She was the type who needed a few hours to find the right angle, the right story to sell. Probably standing in the living room now, staring at my empty dresser drawer, wondering which version of herself to become for this chapter. Victim? Vixen? Woman caught between love and confusion? Didn't matter. I pulled into a roadside diner 2 towns over. The kind of place that still believes in jukeboxes and bottomless coffee. I sat in the corner, facing the window. Ordered eggs. Didn't eat them. I watched a couple in their 60s share a crossword puzzle. He did the clues. She filled in the boxes. They laughed every now and then. I used to think we'd be like that. Back when I believed in us. My phone buzzed around noon. Her name. No message. Just a missed call. That was the opening shot. The second came an hour later. Can we talk? I stared at it until the screen went dark. That night, I checked into a cheap motel near a lake I used to fish at with my dad. Nostalgia with linoleum floors and a faulty AC unit. The kind of place with blankets that smell like bleach and a TV mounted too high on the wall. The silence felt honest. Heavy but honest. She sent another text around 11. I didn't mean for things to get like this. Oh, there it was. Not an apology. Not a confession. Just that vague fog of regret people toss over their actions when they're more upset about getting caught than about what they actually did. I didn't answer. The next day, I went home. Not to move back in. Not to make up. To get the rest of my stuff. She was there, sitting on the couch with a mug of tea like a woman in a Hallmark movie. Soft sweater. Legs tucked. Face washed clean. No makeup. Innocent. Owen, she said, standing. You just disappeared. I dropped the spare key on the entry table. You asked for space. I gave it structure. She winced. This isn't you. No, I agreed. It's me now. She stepped closer, eyes glossy. I stayed still, like a monument to every time I looked the other way when she smiled too wide at her phone. I know you're upset. I raised my hand. Let's not do that. Do what? The part where you act like this is new information. Like the affair just landed in your lap this morning with a return address. Her lip quivered, just slightly. I made a mistake. I laughed. Quiet. Tired. Mistakes are spilling coffee or forgetting someone's birthday, I said. You didn't trip and fall into a hotel bed. You built an entire lie. One reservation at a time. I didn't mean to hurt you. You just didn't mean to get caught. Silence. She looked down, twisting the ring on her finger like it still held meaning. Can we talk, really talk? I don't want this to be the end. I looked around the room. At the picture frames still hanging. The candle we used to light during storms. The couch we picked out together. It all looked the same. And none of it felt like home. I'm not ending anything, I said. You did. You just forgot to announce it. I walked to the bedroom. Grabbed my last bag. Took my books, my shaving kit, the hoodie she always borrowed but never washed right. She followed me down the hall. I know you still love me. That stopped me. I turned. You're right, I said. I do. Her eyes lit up. A spark of hope. But I don't respect you, I finished. And I'd rather lose someone I love than stay with someone I don't trust. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't ask permission. It just shows up, moves in, and expects you to pretend the furniture hasn't changed. She stood there. Still. Silent. I walked past her. Out the door. She didn't follow. Didn't beg. Didn't collapse in tears like the movies teach us women do when the good guy walks away. No, she stayed still. Because some part of her knew she wasn't the victim in this story. I drove back to the motel. Laid on the stiff bed. Stared at the ceiling like it owed me answers. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't broken. But because crying would have been about her. And this moment wasn't hers to have. It was mine. The next morning, I started building a new story. Not out of vengeance. Not out of spite. But because I had space again. I had air in my lungs. And a man's got to breathe. People think the hardest part of betrayal is the moment you find out. It's not. It's the days after, when the world keeps turning like your life didn't just detonate in silence. I went back to work the following Monday. Wore the same dress shirt I wore the day I got the first text from her. Working late. Love you. Everyone assumed I was fine. Morning, Owen. How was the weekend? I smiled. Said, good. Drank bad office coffee. Replied to emails. Made small talk with Greg from accounting about his fantasy football team. Because that's the game. You wear the mask. You show up. You function. You make the world think the furniture's still where you left it, even when everything's upside down. It's not lying. Not really. It's survival. Midway through the week, I got a message from someone I hadn't expected. Hey, can we talk? It's about her. Not gossip, truth. It was from a name I vaguely recognized, Rachel, one of her coworkers. We'd met once at a company barbecue, the one where I grilled chicken and pretended I liked IPA. We met at a cafe downtown. Neutral territory. She ordered an oat milk latte. I just got black coffee. No sugar. No patience. She sat down. Looked nervous. Like someone about to cross a line she couldn't uncross. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, she started. But then I figured, if someone had the chance to tell me, I'd want them to. I didn't interrupt. She's been seeing him for a while, Rachel continued. Not just the guy from the hotel. There was another before him. Brief, but real. That landed harder than I expected. Not because I was shocked, but because it confirmed what I already suspected. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. She told me once, Rachel said, stirring her coffee slowly, that you were too predictable. I blinked. Predictable. Not in a bad way. Just safe. She said you made her feel secure but not alive. I laughed. Couldn't help it. A short, bitter thing. Funny, I said. I thought being dependable was the point. Rachel looked guilty. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I do, I said. Because you're tired of pretending she's someone she's not. Rachel nodded slowly. Yeah, that. I thanked her. Paid for her coffee. Walked out into the cold air and let the truth settle like snow on my shoulders. She didn't just cheat. She curated it. She revised the story of us until I was just a character she tolerated, while she cast herself as the misunderstood lead. Back at the motel, I pulled out the envelope again. The photos. The receipts. The time-stamped betrayal. They didn't sting anymore. Now, they felt like clarity. Like x-rays after the diagnosis. You already knew the bone was broken, but now you could see the fracture line. That night, she texted again. Please let me explain. Just give me that. I thought about ignoring it. But then I remembered something my grandfather used to say. Don't fight someone's lies. Let them talk long enough, and the truth will do the work for you. So I texted back. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'll listen. She responded in seconds. Thank you. I just want to make this right. And that was the moment I decided she was never getting the chance. Not to spin it. Not to shape it. Not to edit the truth like a PR campaign. The next day, I called Cal. You still got that backup? I asked. You mean the folder? Yeah. Everything. Send it. He did. I printed every page. 3 copies. One for me. One for her. One for my lawyer. At 7:02 p.m., I pulled into the driveway of what used to be our home. She was already waiting, porch light on, hair curled, wearing the blue sweater she knew I liked. Performance mode activated. She opened the door like we were lovers meeting after a misunderstanding. Thank you for coming, she said. I stepped in. No hug. No handshake. Just silence. She led me to the kitchen. 2 mugs sat on the table. Tea. Her style. I've been thinking a lot, she began. About everything. I didn't sit. I owe you honesty, she said, eyes wide like it was rehearsed. Things got complicated. I didn't handle them right. But it wasn't because I stopped loving you. I slid the folder across the table. The same envelope. The same evidence. All printed. All dated. Her mouth snapped shut. This is you, I said calmly. Without the filters. Without the script. She reached for it. I put my hand on the folder. No. Not yet. She looked confused. Caught. Fragile. I gave you time, I said. To come clean. You didn't. I gave you distance. You used it to rewrite the story. Now I'm giving you truth. I handed her a pen. What's this for? She asked. For signing the divorce papers, I said. Her face collapsed. Mouth open. Words stuck. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said. I'm doing this because you've already ended it. I'm just giving it a name. She tried to argue, to explain, but I didn't stick around to hear it. I walked out, just like she expected me never to do. And you know what? It felt good. Because when you finally take off the mask, when you stop playing your assigned role in someone else's lie, you don't lose yourself, you find him. And I like that guy. He didn't fold under pressure. He walked straight through it. The thing no one tells you about confrontation is that it's never the climax. It's the catalyst. I left the house that night feeling lighter, sure, but not whole. The weight hadn't disappeared. I had just put it down long enough to breathe. And breathing, as it turns out, is enough to make people panic. She called 10 minutes after I left. I let it ring. Texted instead. Please communicate through my lawyer moving forward. That's all it said. Cold? Maybe. But clarity's never cozy. She didn't text back. Not right away. I pictured her standing in the kitchen, folder open, eyes darting from photo to receipt to timestamp, watching the story she'd been telling herself come apart in ink and silence. And silence, my friend, is terrifying for someone who thrives in chaos. Over the next few days, she tried to shift the narrative. Not to me, but to everyone else. Mutual friends started texting. Not directly asking what happened, but fishing. Hey, just checking in. Heard things are weird. Or, you okay? She said you just kind of snapped. Snapped. Right. Because quietly collecting evidence of someone's dishonesty and then calmly walking away is now called snapping. She wasn't telling people what she did, she was telling them how I reacted. Classic misdirection. Control the frame, and you control the story. So I didn't respond to anyone. Not yet. I waited. Let her spin her web. Let her tangle herself in it. Because the truth doesn't need a loudspeaker. It just needs daylight. A week later, it arrived. An invitation. Her sister sent it, unintentionally or cruelly, I still don't know. But it landed in my mailbox like a punchline with a wax seal. Join us in celebrating the engagement of Madeline Grace Wolfe and Adrian James Knox. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. She wasn't hiding it anymore. She had swapped out her entire reality, put a new man in my place, and now she wanted to throw a party about it. She was already engaged. Weeks after the folder. Days after the divorce papers. It was almost impressive, in a gladiator sort of way. I didn't get angry. I got methodical. Step 1. I met with my lawyer. Finalized everything. No drama, no court showdown. Just precision. Step 2. I contacted Cal again. Not for dirt. For protection. Don't trust how she'll react when this goes public, I told him. He nodded. I'll keep a tail on things. Quietly. Step 3. I wrote a letter. Not to her. To everyone else. An open letter. Not angry. Not bitter. Just facts. I posted it on social media, where she'd been busy uploading filtered photos and pseudo-poetic captions like, sometimes things fall apart so better things can fall together. Sure, Madeline. I posted at 6 p.m. on a Friday. Here's how it started. For those wondering why my name quietly disappeared from a lot of holiday invites and tagged photos lately, here's your answer. I didn't walk away from my marriage. I walked away from being lied to. I didn't snap. I uncovered a truth. My wife, now engaged to someone else, began an affair while we were still married. I have no interest in shaming her. I simply won't allow a lie to become my legacy. No names. No insults. Just dots connected. I went on. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming the narrative. If you've been fed a version of this story where I'm the storm, I ask only that you consider who started the fire. I'm not asking for sides. I'm asking for honesty. By Saturday morning, it had over 300 shares. I didn't check the comments. Didn't need to. She did, though. I know she did. Because by noon, she called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Voice trembling, not with sadness, but frustration. You had no right, she said. You promised to be civil. You're trying to destroy me. Destroy her? By speaking? Funny how fragile people get when the mirror talks back. By Monday, her narrative had collapsed. Her engagement party was postponed. Some guests backed out. Her Instagram went dark. A mutual friend, one of the few who hadn't taken sides, texted me. She didn't think you'd speak. She thought you'd just disappear. I almost did. Almost. But here's the thing. Silence only works when no one notices you left. And this time, They noticed, not because I shouted, but because I stood up, finally, and said, enough. That week, I moved into a new apartment. Small, simple. Mine. No echo of someone else's perfume. No second toothbrush with no purpose. I bought a new couch. Built it myself. Got a lamp that gives off warm, soft light. Picked out art I actually like, not just what matched her aesthetic. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I slept like I wasn't being haunted by someone else's disappointment. She still hasn't apologized. And I don't expect her to. Some people don't say sorry. Not because they're monsters, but because they genuinely believe they're the ones owed something. But me? I don't need sorry. I've got something better. Peace. The message came 3 weeks after the post. Not a call. Not a voicemail. A handwritten letter. Delivered in a pink envelope. Her handwriting on the front, still rounded, still neat. The kind she used on birthday cards, grocery lists, and the sticky notes she used to leave on my mirror. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes. Then I opened it. Owen, I don't know what to say that you'd believe. I don't know how to explain what I barely understand myself. But I do know this. Losing you didn't feel real until everyone else knew I did. You were steady. You were good. You were home. I wanted fire. And I burned down the only shelter I ever had. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I confused comfort for complacency. I'm sorry I mistook your quiet for weakness. I'm sorry I waited until the mirror cracked to see my own reflection. That was the first page. There were 3 more. Regret stacked like apology cards in a store aisle. Too little, too late, too wordy. She didn't ask to get back together. She just wanted to be heard. And that was the part that made me laugh, not in a cruel way, just in that tired, honest, you finally get it kind of way. Because I had always been listening. She just hadn't been talking. Closure's not a door slam. It's a doorknob slowly turning, then locking behind you. I sent her letter back, unopened. Not to be spiteful. Just to say, this chapter ended with the truth. Not the rewrite. In the weeks that followed, I started writing again. Nothing profound. Just thoughts. Journal pages full of observations. I stopped calling it healing. I called it inventory. Because that's what I was doing, taking stock of the man who had quietly survived emotional starvation. And I found him. Not bitter. Not broken. Just done. Then one night, I got a text from her sister. Short. Sharp. You should know, she called off the engagement. No explanation. Just that. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because when you spend your whole life trying to feel like a spark, you eventually realize it's not light you're chasing. It's attention. And attention runs out. Especially when it's built on borrowed time and someone else's loyalty. That weekend, I boxed up the last of our shared life. Old photos. Anniversary cards. A love you more mug she used to drink from when we still meant it. I left the box by the door. Taped it shut. Not for her. Not for me. For the version of us that never learned to speak until everything was on fire. The last time I saw her was unplanned. A grocery store. She was by the oranges. No makeup. No ring. I stood at the end of the aisle. She hadn't seen me yet. I had 2 choices. Walk away. Or say something. I walked up slow. She looked up. Eyes widened. Not with panic. Just that stunned, time-paused kind of shock. Owen, she breathed. I smiled. Just a little. Hey. She looked like she wanted to say 1,000 things. But didn't. I reached into my basket. Pulled out an orange. Held it up. You used to say these were your favorite. She nodded, soft. They still are. I nodded back. Good. Then I placed the orange in her cart. And walked away. That was it. No monologue. No accusations. No final lecture. Just a moment. A small, quiet bookmark at the end of a loud, silent story. Because the best revenge? Is being the man who left with his dignity intact, while she stood in the fruit aisle realizing she didn't just lose someone who loved her. She lost someone who never needed to scream to be heard. She lost the version of me that still believed she was worth the silence. And I? I walked out with groceries and peace. 2 things she'll keep shopping for.